Yeah, YouTubers, today I'm going to show you how I make some Judas Sellout by Don Max Lacour, and I will take you through the procedure of how I did this mixing. But before we do that, let's listen to the song before I go to the main project based on how to mix the song. This song will be released on Wednesday the 25th of October 2017, and try to get a copy for yourself and then you feel the flow. So let's listen to the song first before we dive into the project files, and I'll start showing the plugins and then the techniques I use in mixing this song.
Yeah, clap, go. Originals. Yeah, let go. Those guys who struggle, they know the support. If you make them finish them, the one come on. Tension is no them or say matter pack well a nice way to say support. No thanks to my boy. Yeah, one day I will share some Rolls Royce to 7 years of for original to the storm any day. Say we die, I swear I know the lie. Keep supporting good cause. Nobody know my day is sweet for us. Then they hate you because you endorse the organic, know the flow, but they true source. I tell them they fill my flow, fill my flag, fill my show. We took it slow from the bottom, now we grow. So they wanna know the NSA, keep it low. Till I call original flow. My future shaka while the tears go come. Makanana, that will make us one. We go born losses like fortress and let you me allow up and away the flame go land. How do you feel the fun? Judah, for Judah, for Judah, Judah, for Judah, for Judah, Judah, for Judah. We tell Jesus, no set, even me, you go tell, oh, look out. I do it in the get, woman, the big get. Oh, I can't go on this 1 minute ticket. My man, let be here, get sick. I've not sparked me, so get things to my ticket. Tell boys not to compare, come and flow with me. Or I go punch and spoil your kidney. Or if you want future, prepare heavily. Cause Maka bottle lata, I know jiggle and briefly. Guy polish, let shine. Maka king issue, what is every rhyme. Upon all that, I'm still feeling fine. A man close to you, go tell you for a time. Yeah, when you make it up, you call. Why should I turn my back now? Big ass. One life if I die, that's also at last now. Don't even have trespass. So many Judas from 95. Then go take to you when you on the right. Some old celebrities to the top. To a point when they buy, they can pay the price. Cause so many fall, so many ride, so many walk, some to fly. Together we go win, challenge no lie. Why you they sell out a brother? Why? Judah, Judah, for Judah, for Judah, Judah, for Judah, for Judah, Judah, for Judah. You tell Jesus, no set, even me, you go tell, oh, look out. No take over, ball go on the pitch. Grace hard work, money, talent, and attitude. Most people know what is coming from east, so they'll tell you that the max is sick. Shout out to Origin, shout out AE, shout out to Westside, shout out to BBC, shout out the Pantos, where they feel me with the drop by day, haters can see. But I'm okay, why be when the rock city the glow. DHFJYM the flow. Apotex boys and TMDs be more, and Crack original song starts to flow. Last one, have the ashes on it. Taria, Taria. Hey.
Yeah, so that is the song. You have heard it all and there's nothing much to say. So let's dive into the project itself and then we'll see how to this mix was done. But first of all, I just want to thank Don Max for giving me the opportunity to use this project to show you how I make the song. So shout out to Don Max, and don't forget the release date. When is it to come? 25th October. So grab your copy now. You can check Don Max on Facebook, Twitter. You can Google for Don Max Lacour Judas. Yeah. So let's go to the project file. So I have the whole project file here. Let's listen to the project first without the plugins. So what you always try to do as much as possible is to set levels for every project that you are working on, and then mostly you try to clear pops and then breaths on a song, and most breaths you clear them off, some of them you minimize them, because if you take them completely it makes the mix look dull and odd, and then there are always dead spaces in your music. So sometimes it's not all breaths that you can take off, some of them you minimize them, and some that interferes with your mix you take them off. Sometimes there might even be a breath on a mix, you might not even notice that it's a breath because it blends into the music, and set type of breaths you leave them on the mix. So let's switch to my mixer and then we see the plugins that we have I use in mixing the song. So this is my mixer that I have here. So before we start, you can see all the plugins that I do. Now the first thing I always try to do as much as possible is to set levels for the music or the song that I'm coming to mix, and then you can see the mixer levels for each of the tracks. Whether it's the beat you can see I have it level at -15, and then I have my lead vocals at -5, and then I have a backing lead vocal which is set to -15, backing up the lead vocal. Then I have the same for the next line and the same too, and that takes me to my backing vocals. I narrow them down to -10. I have my next backing vocals where I narrow down to -8, and I have my ad-libs which I made it -17, because ad-libs mostly are not supposed to pop up in music, even though you might hear them, but not as compared to your lead vocals. So always remember that. So ad-libs and most of your backings, and you need to let them go down and support the main vocal to stand out. So the first thing I always do is that I always create a group in Cubase, name it as Vox. I have backing group. I have my Vox bars. That means that my lead vocals are routed to Vox, and then my backing vocals are routed to backings. And I have another group called the Vox bars, which the Vox and then the backing vocals are routed to that Vox before it is being channeled into another group called mix bars. And then I have a slot for my beat, which I always route the beat to that group too as well. So the mix bars takes the Vox and then the beat, and then that prints it to another group called the print bars. So all this is routed to the print bars before the print bars sends it to my master output channel. So what I always do first is with my lead vocals is that I always use CLA vocals stereo on my Vox group, and then this is the preset I use. So I've just turned it on. Let's listen to the beat with this plugin on it.
Thanks to my boy, yeah, one day I will share some Rolls Royce to separate the club for original to the
So you
strong
can see the
anything.
difference.
Till we die, I swear I know the lie. Keep supporting the
So let me
cause.
bypass
Nobody
it.
know my day is sweet for.
So you
They
can
hate
see
you because you endorse the organic, no
how
the
the
flow,
vocal
but they
stands
true
out.
source. I tell them to fill my flow, fill my flare, play my show. We took it slow from the bottom, now we grow.
These
So
are the
when I know
settings
the
I
say keep it
have
low,
my
the clap
top.
for
I
original
always
flow.
use the
Man,
start
just
up
shut the one it is for come.
preset.
I can't,
This is the
that
start
will
up
make us
me.
one. We go
Then I
for
tweak
nothing like
my
what
settings. I tweak it to the way I want it, and then when I tweak it and I'm satisfied with it, then I move to the next plugin. So these are the tweaks I have for this particular plugin. And then the next thing I do is that I try to bring in a flip plugin called Fabric TDS, which when I'm mixing I always try to mimic an analog mix. So what I do is that I always bring in this Fabric TDS plugin, so that I can add a little bit of saturation to my vocals. So I have this plugin running throughout my whole channel, so starting from my first lead vocal channel to the rest of my channels, that is based on my mono channels. So starting from my ad-libs and then to my lead vocals, I have this plugin running through, so I'm going to turn them on, so to add a little bit of saturation to the vocals, and then makes the vocal look warm. Then from there I try to use an EQ the vocals, and I always use VEQ3. And then I always use a lead vocal preset. But when I select the lead vocal preset, what happens is that it comes with more highs. You can see the highs. So what I'll do is that I cut down the highs down to 0, because currently I have the highs increased from 7.1. So I cut the highs back to 0, and I turn off analog, which will stop noise, the plugin producing noise into the mix as well. So that is one thing I always try to make as well. And then my VEQ3 plugin runs through my vocals. So I make sure I turn them on throughout my vocals. And then, so that means that I have that EQ
together
all
we
my
go win, challenge no
vocals
lie.
in the
Why
mix.
you the sell
It's
out
not
the
about
brother?
using so many plugins in a song. If you actually understand what you are doing, the least plugins you use is okay. If your vocals are nicely recorded, and then you don't need to treat vocals. If you have a bad environment whereby you record your vocals, that is where you have to treat vocals. But if you have a good environment, you only need to mix vocals, set levels, and you are good to go. You don't need to treat vocals. You don't need to implement so many plugins, and then at the end of the day, it slows down your machine. Just look at the most simplest plugins you can use as much as possible, just to make the vocals sit in your mix, and then you are done. Nothing else to do. And then what is left is not your creativity. The INC.
Judas, Judas, oh Judas, oh Judas, Judas, oh Judas, oh Judas, Judas, oh Judas. You sell Jesus, no 30. Even me, you go sell
So the
on
next
Lucas.
plugin I use is
You not take over.
Fab
Volga on the
Filters
beat.
Q2
Great hard work,
as well.
money, talent, and
I always
attitude.
try
Most
to use
people
a
know what
Fab
is coming
Filters to
from
cut the
you,
low
so they
ends
will
of the
tell you
vocals.
that the max is
Now,
sick. Shout
Fab
out to
Filter has a graphic display that shows dead areas of vocals. So I try as much as possible to cut away those dead areas on my lead vocals. So on my lead vocals, I have Fab Filters Q2 running through all my lead vocals, and then you can see my lead vocals having Fab Filters running through them as well.
Shout out to Origin, shout out AE, shout out to Westside, shout out to BBC, shout out the fans those where they feel me with the grow by day, haters can see. Makamoka YB when the Rock City they grow, DHFJYM.
So that is so far so good. And then when it comes to the backing vocals, what I do is that I use REQ 4 from Waves, and then normally I use mono because it's a mono track that I'm inserting it into. I don't use stereo. I use stereo for my groups, and then I use mono for my mono tracks as well. So what I always do is that I always cut the high ends of my backing vocals. High ends is what always interferes with your lead vocals. So basically what I do is that I cut the high ends off from backing vocals, because that pushes the backing vocals to the back of the mix, and then always makes the lead vocal stands out. So I make sure that I always use REQ4 to do that. So I cut the high ends and the low ends away, so that my backing vocal can be at the back of my mix. So I have REQ4 running throughout my backing vocal tracks, and then I'm good to go.
I'm the flow. Apotex boys and TMG
So
before
when my
and
backing
Black
vocals
original
are
song starts the flow.
they appears to be at the back of my mix, whilst my lead vocals
Have a nice
is in
on it.
front.
Saria, Saria.
So that is what I always use to achieve that. And then based on my supporting lead vocals, I try as much as possible to also cut a part of the high ends away, because if you have two lead vocals, it might also happen that the high frequencies will interfere each other, and then your vocal turns out to sound some ways. So I also try as much as possible to cut a little bit of the high ends, and then also check portion of it that I can cut, so that there won't be any interference in my vocals. So I was able to take off a little bit of high ends, and then I was able to take off this area of the mix just to make it sit and blend, and it sounds like a single vocal recorded from a single mic. Wow, that sounds good. So I have that for both supporting lead vocals in my mix as well. So
Judas, you sell Jesus, no 30. Even me, you go sell on Lucas.
So then that takes us to my backing. More times I want to have a rapper. I don't want to have a rapper. I don't actually add I don't use so much auto tune. Maybe it's the backing vocals, but Domax is a good rapper, and then he does his end backings, his ad libs very well. So mostly you don't need to add auto tune to tune his vocals and other things. We use auto tune mostly when it is a singer, we use auto tune to support his backings and other things. But as a rapper, we don't actually need that. But the reason why I use auto tune is the Max made some backings here. Let's listen to those backings. Then I'll tell you the reason why I use the auto tune. So the reason why I use auto tune is that he tries to do those harmonies in an harmony form. Yeah, that is what he tries to do. So because of that, I added these auto tunes on the harmonies for Don Max, and then you can see the auto tune. I regulate auto tune full, and then I use some bass instruments, and then I end up by falling on D minor for this particular song. Mostly auto tune, you have to tweak to get the key, and that depends on your ear. Your ear tells you if you are convinced with the auto tune, then basically you are good to go. So that is why I added auto tune to these harmonies as well. So then we keep on going to the next level. So let me solo off.
I've not packed me so get beat the mat ticket. Tell boys not to compare them a flow with me. Or I go punch and spoil
with the lead vocal, I always try to add a little bit of chorus effect on it, and I always use the liquid mode 2 that comes with normal factory, and I always use gentle chorus and then the mix to 14, and then I'm cool with that. It sounds perfect for me to my ear. If I remove the instrumental, leaving only the vocals, yeah,
or if you want feature, prepare heavily. Cause Macabota Lata and no jiggle Britney. Guy polish let shine. Magatini issue what deserve a rhyme. Upon all that, I'm still feeling fine. A man close to you go sell it for a dime. Yeah, when Libya made Gaddafi to fall.
So you can see how it sounds on without the instrumental, and then when it blends in the instrumental, then your vocals pops up.
Why should I send my back now? Fit one line if I die, that's also a
so let's look at the next instruments that I use. Plugins that I used. I also use far filter to cut off some low ends on my main vocal too as well.
So many students from 95, then go take to you when you on the right. From old
to cut off those low ends from the bottom part of my group vox, yeah, as well. Then I also have my backing vocals here. My backing vocals, I always use CLA 3A to compress my backing vocals to stand out in my mix, and then I also add a little bit of EQ to cut down the backing vocals again, to tame down some high frequency that were able to make their way through into the backing vocals. Because one thing is that if you have so much high frequency in your mix, it ends up by messing up with the main vocals, and then at the end of the day you are doomed with your vocal. You can't even trace up where the main problem is coming from. So I try as much as possible to cut off these low ends, these high frequencies away, so that my lead vocal can stand out, and my backing vocals can also be at the back of my mixture as well. So I introduced another EQ there to do those, and then if there was other frequencies that I didn't like, automatically I'll see how best I can also cut off those frequencies. But for now I'm satisfied with my backing vocals, and then it's good to my hearing and other things, and I don't have
celebrating to the back to a point when they buy they can pay the price. For so many falls, so many rap.
Now the next thing I do is that I have my vox bars, which I always put a vocal rider on that, and then the vocal rider I always set it to make sure that it levels all the vocals and pull up vocals to be on the same level. Some part of the lead vocals, maybe he might be active more than one, so the vocal rider also pulls up all the vocals to make sure that they have the same level, and then they are popping up in your mix, and then you are good to go.
Right, so many walk, some to fly. Together we go win. I don't know.
So you can see as the vocal rider is working.
No lie, why you the sell out?
So if your vocal is high, it tries to cut down. If it is low, it tries to take it up. So you can see the vocal rider.
Say brother, why? Judas, Tell Jesus no 30, even me you go tell or look at.
So that's how the vocal rider works as well. And then that takes us to my mix bars. my mix bus, I always try to have a real bus that comes from tone booster, and then I always set it to taste. It is, all songs are not the same, but for max I use hybrid for that. So you can also try out to see which of the presets is good for you, to also add a little bit of saturation to your mix too as well, and your mix continue to pop out in your mix.
No take over, ball on the beat, grace, hard work, money, talent, and attitude. Most people know what is coming from east, so they'll tell you that the max is sick. Shout out the origin, shout out AE, shout out to Westside, shout out to BBT.
So I also have another plugin here, which is the NLL channels stereo that I always put, and then I tweak a little bit. I can push the drive. Actually, I actually didn't work on the drive so much. I just make sure it was in the mix just to keep it moving, and that is all. I didn't actually do so much on this plugin. I just make sure it was there just to keep it normal settings, and then keep my whole mix popping up.
Shout out the pastors with the film with the pro by day, haters can see. But I'm not why be when the rock city the glow. DHFG.
So just like I said, I'm using my laptop, but if it was on a studio monitor, you actually feel the vibe in the mix. So when I was mixing it in the studio, I was actually amused with the output that I was getting, and then it kept me going on and on and on and on, and at the final we're able to come up with our final mix. And after this, I'll show you how I actually master the song. There's always one thing that you need to know: if there's a problem in your mix, it follows you to your mastering chain. So what I always try to do is that in mastering, I don't EQ anything again. I don't actually compress, do so much compressing or other things when it comes to mastering. If I have a problem in my mix, if I go to mastering chain and I have a problem, I make sure I come back to my mix and fix that before I export again and go and master it. So on my mastering stage, I'm only out to make sure that I increase the loudness of the mix to a point that there will not be any distortion in my mix, and there will not be distortion in my final song. So that is what I do. So if you have a problem in your mix when you are mastering and you notice that there's a problem, go back to your mix, then make those corrections, export the song back again, then take it to your mastering chain, and then you do that. Don't ever use an EQ on your mastering chain. Maybe you realize that there was a boxy area, then you try to use the EQ to cut out those areas and other things. No, it's not a good practice. Go back to your mix, fix that, export it, and come back and do your mastering. Then on my print bars, I have Kramer tape stereo, which runs through my mix, and then on my print group, I used the mastering clean and open, and then to open the mix up and then make it very clean. You can always try presets to your taste, and after selecting a preset, you can also tweak some certain few things and other things. Now, one thing you need to know about some of these plugins is that when you select that, they introduce noise. So if you don't want the noise, you try to cut down the noise, and mostly I normally cut down this noise on it so that I won't have noise coming or popping up in um, uh, on my studio monitors. That is what I always try to do as much as possible. So
JYM the flow, Apotex boys and TMTs before and Black original song starts the flow.
So you can see the difference.
Last one.
Sorry, the Creamer plugin also add a little bit of saturation to the whole mix, and then makes it looks a little bit bright and then presentable to you, to your hearing. And that is always one good thing I like about using this plugin. So you can try it. Sorry, you can try this plugin, and then it makes your mix stand out, and then try to keep it like an analog gear, yeah, as if you are mixing it on an analog studio and other things and so forth. So always try as much as possible to work towards that. And then I have a compressor here, H compressor, which I always use to do parallel compression. And there's a nice preset that I like and called parallel compression that I always use as much. So if I come to my back end of my rack, I have my H compressor here, which I added it on my Vox bars, and then I actually and then I actually with the parallel compression on the vocal, I actually blend negative 15% of it in my mix. So I reduce the negative 15% from the mix, and then that also makes the vocal stands out as well. And then I have a mono delay too, which I also add to my whole mix. And then this my mono delay this is my mono delay. So I haven't actually turned on the mono delay yet. So I have my mono delay, and this is the mono delay. I'm using 1/4. Feedback is negative 5.7.5. Then I cut low ends, cut a little bit of high ends, then blending it in the mix. I'm about 11. And then I also use an EQ too as well to EQ the delay as well, cut the low ends of the delay away, and then also cut a little bit of the highs of the delay. And then also use a compressor as well on the delay too as well to make the delay also pop up too as well. And then you are good to go. So this is the whole mix instrument that I use. And you can see that my machine is still good to go with the preset. You haven't seen any itches in my mix that I use so many heavy plugins, and then the mix the whole machine is itching up, or maybe I'm using a lot of processor or memory in my mix. I try as much as possible to use simple plugins, and yet I can achieve something pleasant to the ear, and that can compute at the market, for commercial music. So always try as much as possible to use less instruments and then make your mix stand out. So that is how I always mix my songs. And then I just want to thank Don Max again for giving me the opportunity to use this project to show you people how to mix, to do mixing vocals, and then how to make vocals sit in a mix. I'm happy with that. So we just switch to how to master this song, and I actually did that earlier on, so I'll just open that one to show you what I was talking about. Anytime there's a problem with the mix, and then I go to mastering chain and realize that there's a problem, I come back to my mixing to correct that before I go back to mastering again, and I spot a new one, then I take it my mastering chain. So let's listen to the mix again, and then before we switch to my mastering chain.
Let go. Those guys. Yeah. Crack Originals. Let go. Those guys who struggle, they know the support. If you make them finish them, the one common. Tension nails, not them, or say matter pack well, a nice way to say support. Enough thanks to my boy. Yeah, one day I will share some Rolls Royce to separate the club for original to the strong. Any day, till we die, I swear I know the lie. Keeps up.
So once you're able to set your levels, and then you're using the right plugins for your mixing, your mix will always pop up. Your mix will always look good. Your vocals is always clean. And try as much as possible to always clean vocals before you proceed. Now, one good thing about cleaning vocals is that you reduce noise in your mix. And then dead areas where you weren't recording, or the artist was not recording something, there will be a little bit of noise at the background. So automatically what I do is that I double click on the recorded track, and then it takes it to my editor mode. Then from here I can edit, I can silence vocals that I'm not using. So for example, if I'm not using this vocal, I can select it, or maybe some dead space. You can see I've taken all dead spaces. I can highlight, then I'll go to process, then I'll come to select process, then I'll come to silence, and then it will silence that for me. So let me use this as an example. So I'll go to silence, then I'll click on silence, and then it's telling me I say continue, then I've taken it off, as you can see. So I'll undo to bring it back. So that is how you clean vocals. Try as much as possible, spend much of your time to clean all those things. Now look at this, a breath, but it's blending into the mix very well, so I don't actually need to take it off. But there are certain breaths that I took them off in the mix, right? If I play all these breaths, you can see they are breaths, but in the mix you will not notice that they are there.
Supporting good cause. Nobody know my day is sweet for. Then they hate you because
so you can see that the breaths are not popping up, so I left them in the mix so that those areas will not be dead spaces in my mix. So I try as much as possible to keep this. I have some noise areas here which are dead. I can select them, then I'll go to process and silence them, then those dead spaces are gone. So always try your possible best to clean your audios before you go to before even putting in plugins and other things. But after cleaning, set levels for the instrumental and then the vocals before you start mixing. And once you start introducing plugins, vocals will be getting a little bit louder, and then you need to retweak to your instruments and other things to match up or catch up with the vocals. But always make sure that your mix is clean and neat. So let's save this and then we'll go to the mastering chain. Then I'll show you how I mastered this particular song. So I'll close this, then I'll go to file, open, then I'll switch to desktop, then I have Don Max, then I have master, then I'll open my master file. Yeah, so this is why I mastered the song today after
no thanks to my boy. Yeah, what?
So this the mastered song. So as you can see,
Yeah, Crack Schoex. Originals. Yeah, let go. Those guys who struggle to know the support. If you make out finish, then the one.
so that is it. I'll just mute this and then unmute the song I exported from the mix. So this is the one I exported from the mix. Now if I check the statistics of the song, statistics, my average volume is negative 19, which is low a low volume song. So we need to bring the song a little bit louder. So if you look at the mastered one, after mastering, the volume that I had, it was negative 10, and then that was okay for me. I didn't actually want to crank anything to boost so many things and other things to make my mix odd. So negative 10 is okay for me. With Afro pop, that is what I believe is good for me. So you can boost it as you want. You can boost it to the level you want. It's up to you, the volume you want, but make sure that the dynamics of the song is still there. Don't spoil the dynamics, is very important. So let's look at the plugins I also used for this mastering chain. So these are the plugins I used. First of all, I had multi-band compressor from Cubase itself, and then that is a preset. I didn't do anything with it, just the default preset that comes with it. It was okay. I only tweak a little bit of this high ends, and then I only reduce them a little bit, and then
I will share some rules to separate the original to the strong.
And nothing more, nothing less.
I know the lie. Keep supporting good cause. Nobody know my day is sweet for. When they hate you because you endorse the organic, know the flow, but the true source. I tell them to fill my flow, fill my flag, fill my show. We took it slow from the bottom now.
The rest of
they wanna know the anything. Give me low to clap for
original. I can solo the low ends, and you can see the low ends.
Make everyone who go born off this like.
And then I was actually happy with I don't want to do anything more beyond that. And then I had a stereo enhancer which I fixed in, and then the width was 100, and then nothing more, just like that. Then I had a DSR that I kept in to make sure that anything passing this level, if there are so many highs in the songs, then I can still cut off a little bit of highs and make sure that when it is played, it's not itching ears and other things that people can enjoy. So if I switch to sidechain, so you can see the highs. So if the highs are going higher, then it keeps on cutting. But make sure you don't cut much of the highs so that the song will look dull. So I just try as much as possible. Anything that hits beyond the then I had T-Rex, yeah. Oh, I didn't install T-Rex on my laptop, sorry. I also used T-Rex, a brick wall limiter, and then T-Rex, clipper a little bit. And then the T-Rex limiter, I used the extreme preset for it, and then I cut the output by negative 0.3 so that my mix will not go louder than that. And then I actually use the Tigras clipper to boost the song a little bit. I boosted about negative 5 or so, yeah, to add it to it, and then that was what was able to raise the song to a negative 10 dB, and then that was good for me, and then the whole mix was done. So that is how I mixed the song. And then remember, the song will be released on 25th. That will be Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. So please Google for it, and then you get it. Visit Don Max Facebook page, like, and then comment. Yeah, so let's listen to the song again.
Yeah, Crack Schoex. Originals. Yeah, let go. Those guys who do struggle, they know the support. If you make them finish them, the one come on. Tension them, snub them, or say master pack well, a nice way to say yeah. Enough thanks to my boy. Yeah, one day I will share some Rolls Royce to celebrate the Crack Schoex original to the storm any day till we die. I swear I know the lie. Keep supporting good cause. Nobody know my day is street force. Them they hate you because you endorse the organic northern flow, my day true source. But still them they feel my flow, feel my flare, flame my show. We took it slow from the bottom, now we grow. So then when I know the English say keep it low, the Crack Schoex originals blow. My future shatter while the case go come. Akanana makanani that go make us one. We go pour nonsense like fortress and let your meal. I will bang away the pain go land. I be you feel the fun. Judas, Judas, oh Judas, oh Judas, Judas, oh Judas, oh Judas, Judas, oh Judas. You sell Jesus, no set even me, you go sell Lord Lucas. I do it and dick it, Guma the pick it. Oh, I sang alone is on minute take it. My man be here, get sick it. I've not sparked me, so get it, my ticket. Tell boys not to compare them a flow with me. Or I go punch and spoil keep me. Or if you want feature, prepare heavily. Cause Maka bottle lata and no jiggle beat me. Guy polish let shine. Maka thing issue what deserve a rhyme. Upon all that, I'm still feeling fine. A man close to you go sell it for a dime. Yeah, when Libya made Gaddafi to fall, why should I turn my back now? Fake ass. One life if I die, that's also a trust. Now don't even now trespass. So many Judases from 95, then go take to you when you on the right. Some old celebrities too, they serve to a point when they buy, they can pay the price. Cause so many fall, so many rise, so many walk, some to fly. Together we go win, I don't know lie. Why you they sell out a brother? Why? Judas, Judas, oh Judas, oh Judas, Judas, oh Judas, oh Judas, Judas, oh Judas. You sell Jesus, no set, even me, you go sell Lord Lucas. Enough take over, ball gun on the pitch. Grace, hard work, money, talent and attitude. Most people know what is coming from east, so they'll tell you that the max is sick. Shout out the origin, shout out AE, shout out to Westside, shout out to BBT, shout out the fans, those way they feel me. We they grow by day, haters can see. But I'm walking wild, be when the rock city they grow. DHFJYM the flow. Apotex boys and TMDs be more, and Crack Schoex original song starts the blow. Crack Schoex. Last ones. Have an ashes on it. Taria, Taria. Hey, hey. Judas, Judas, oh Judas, oh Judas, Judas, oh Judas, oh Judas, Judas, oh Judas. You sell Jesus, no set, even me, you go sell Lord Lucas.